William Bowe is an election analyst at the University of Western Australia and, of course, runs the electoral studies blog, The Poll Bludger. He joins us from Perth. G'day, William. First of all, is there any way to know at this early stage how the change in leadership is going to affect the outcome tomorrow?
Only in the impressionistic sense that we've been getting from national opinion polls, which seems to suggest that there has been a bounce to the Liberal Party now that Abbott's gone of 3% to 4%. I think the ballpark view of where things were headed this time a week ago would have been that the swing against the Liberal Party was approaching 10%. So there was a reference there to the swing having been cut in half. I think that was referring to nationally, but I think it probably applies quite well to Canning as well. We're not looking at a swing of 8 to 10% anymore. I think most people would be expecting around 5%.
So is it fair to say that a couple of points above that and it's a bad night for Malcolm Turnbull, a couple of points below that and it's a bad night for Bill Shorten?
Yeah, I think that is pretty fair to say. Once you get solidly below 5%, I think the memory that people will have is perhaps of the Aston by-election in 2001, which was the big signpost in John Howard's recovery. He'd gone for all money at the beginning of 2001. The government was floundering over the introduction of the GST. They had a defeat in a by-election in the Queensland seat of Ryan. But then I think it was in June that year, there was a 3 to 4% swing in the seat of Aston. And this was even before the Tampa came through and we had the September 11 disaster changing the entire groundwork and making the environment of that election more favourable to Howard. So, you know, if you're looking at that 3 to 4% range, I think that's what people are going to remember, and I think it will be a pretty big morale boost for Malcolm Turnbull.
William, today, of course, are these comments by Andrew Hastys seen by some as politicising the military, saying that Labor he didn't feel, at least, that Labor had his back when he was in the SAS. Is that likely to be a major issue? Is it going to have an impact tomorrow?
I don't think so. It emphasises the point that Andrew Hastys is there as part of a strategy to emphasise the positives of Tony Abbott, and that this is now largely redundant. Having said that, though, I think the notion that there are these Queensbury rules around defence issues is probably news to the voters of Canning. You know, national security more broadly has been, you know, a pretty ferociously contested political issue for quite a long time now. So the idea that, you know, we're supposed to be at one with the troops abroad, I think people might like the idea, but given the overall adversarial tenor of pretty much every aspect of politics these days, I don't think voters would have been bowled over amazement to see Andrew Hastys try to score political points about these sorts of issues.
Bridie.
William, it's Friday here. So the leadership tussle has obviously been dominating the headlines in the lead up to the Canning by-election. But what are the other issues, the real at-home issues that are going to sway the votes there?
Well, we heard a little bit of a mention there in relation to health issues. I think that these have not been within the media spotlight during the campaign, and I think that that is symptomatic of the fact that the Liberal Party have won the tactical battle in terms of dominating the media agenda and making it about the sorts of things that are of interest to them. The question is, to what extent have the voters been responding to the media agenda? Have they been sort of sullenly listening to what the Liberal Party side in particular has been serving up to them and saying, no, wait a minute, you're missing the sort of health and education issues that are our concern? So in a sense, that question won't be answered until tomorrow. But in terms as far as the tactical battle is concerned, the Liberal Party have been talking not just about national security issues, but about the ice epidemic, about things where voters want a kind of tough response, and that fits in with the image of the candidate. And until Monday, it fitted in well with the image of the Prime Minister. And I think set the Tony Abbott up for a reasonably encouraging result in Canning, perhaps deceptively so. But in terms of what the issues are for the voters, they are extremely complex and not necessarily in alignment with what's been coming through in the media.
William, it's Jack here. Look, just going back to the numbers, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, a 2.5% swing is the average for by-elections after the death of a sitting member. Is that correct?
That sounds right, but we're working off an extremely small sample here. Like the Line Labor have been sort of running in preparation for their post-result spin, is that no one has won a by-election off the other party on the basis of after a sitting candidate has died since 1966. But there are extremely few actual examples of this happening, and where there have been, they've tended to be in uncompetitive seats. So to an extent we're flying a bit blind in knowing what the benchmark is in circumstances where the sitting member has died. But in terms of talking about that 3 to 4% swing, and I was using the Aston by-election as a benchmark, that was the last occasion we had where there was a federal by-election after the sitting member died. And I think that generated the conventional wisdom. John Howard did better than we expected here. Perhaps the lesson from that is that voters are less cranky when the sitting member has died. I do think that's true. We have never been talking about the sorts of swings that Campbell Newman was getting in by-elections in Queensland or in New South Wales when there was a 27% swing against quite a popular premier at the time in Barry O'Farrell. They were all circumstances where there was scandal surrounding the outgoing member, or they just left because they wanted a better job. So I clearly think that is a large factor. 2% sounds like a pretty generous benchmark from the Liberals, but nonetheless, I do think that one of the reasons we're looking at a modest swing is for that reason.